Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Why Does Proportional Representation Matter? Uh, Proportional representation to smash the two-party system. What, why, and how. You're going to learn about proportional representation, how it's used around the world to facilitate true multi-party democracy, and how the Green Party of the United States can get involved in efforts to bring it here. About half of the session will be reserved for discussion and questions. So I'll introduce Johanna, Epke, and Jennifer Sullivan, and we'll start with Johanna.
Thanks, Josiah. Hi, everyone. My name is Johanna Epke. We are presenting with my co-presenter, Jennifer Sullivan, on proportional representation. I hope everybody's in the right room. So we have a little more than an hour together today. This is a rough outline. We'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end. I hope folks have brought their questions and comments about proportional representation and other alternative voting systems. So just to give a quick outline of what we're up to. So again, I'm Johanna Epke. I'll just establish my bona fides to be here and presenting on this topic. I have been a Green since I turned 18 right before the 2000 election and had the pleasure of voting for Ralph Nader there. I encourage you not to do the math to figure out how old I am. My first job out of college was with the Green Party of the United States in the national headquarters in DC. I worked with Brent McMillan and Emily Sitkowski there for about a year before going back to law school, and have spent my career practicing environmental law and elections law primarily. I've jumped back and forth between the two. So I spent several years working after law school with David Cobb at Move to Amend, the campaign to overturn Citizens United and get big money out of politics, overturn the concept of corporate constitutional rights. I am now a board member of the Proportional Representation Coalition in California, ProRep, which is one of the most advanced proportional representation campaigns here in the United States. And we've borrowed a lot of slides from them, so you will see a lot of ProRep branding. I also come today wearing the hat of my day job, which is the Build and Fight 501c4, which comes out of solidarity economy work and democratizing elections and the economy. I have the pleasure of having several Greens on my board, including Gloria Matera and David Cobb. I work closely with several networks, the Resist and Build network. There's a meeting in Denver in October of the Resist and Build network, if folks are interested in checking that out. And also the network, the People's Network for Land and Liberation, which is a network of 6 organizations doing solidarity economy and organizing in communities from Jackson, Mississippi to Vermont to Michigan to Western Mass to Humboldt County. Welcome. The camera here? Oh, sure. Ah, okay. I see. Okay, sorry. I thought I was sharing screen and that would... I see. Got it. Okay. Let me see if I can... Thank you for letting me know. Yes. Hello. A close-up view. Oh no. Thank you. And with that introduction, I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer to introduce herself.
Okay. Hello. I'm really excited to be doing this and with an expert on the topic as well. But all I bring to this is like I've been involved in politics really since I was like high school age, and I started contemplating like things that were going on, things that didn't seem like this isn't just, this isn't fair. And I think I always like I stood up for people that were being bullied and picked on. And it all kind of came into there's not, I mean, I look at the platform, I go, I could have written this. I didn't, but I could. I mean, it was like I agreed with the things. It's like, okay, yes, we had the 10 key values and we have the 4 pillars, and it's just like, yes. So that's why I was responsible for doing the 4-pillar T-shirt that you might see on our website. But anyways, the idea is that we're doing all the right things. And Simon said, sorry about that. Didn't even think anyone was calling me, but that's when people call, is when you're in the middle of something, right? So anyways, but I did, like, I dumb exited in 1972 because I realized in 68, I wasn't old enough to vote, but I was for Eugene McCarthy. He was a US Senator. And yes, and he was awesome and he was anti-war. And then I realized no one supported him, that I mean from the DNC. And then when it happened again to George McGovern, same thing, a US Senator, who you would think, okay, there's only 100 of them in the whole wide world. They're powerful people. They wouldn't support him either because he was anti-war. So that's like, oh, I'm out. And I went independent. And then I found the Greens and joined, and it was Ralph Nader that brought me in because Ralph Nader had been doing the things that I believed in too. He was like one of my heroes. And so I had worked with him trying to get nuclear power plants out of the United States, which didn't work out, but you learn from Ralph is like, you do not give up. You keep going. You keep going. And so then we did a TV show and it was on for a couple years, a couple seasons. We kind of, I wish we could have kept going, but it was just a little hard to keep doing it. But we would have activists from the area, green, or even if they weren't green, if they were aligned with us, and we would talk and have a different topic. So we did like 24 episodes of that. And then I also did a debate show called, so it was like called the Fairness Doctrine, and that's something that Ronald Reagan got rid of. The Fairness Doctrine was like, if you had point A, then point B was allowed for a counter argument. So they had equal time. Well, they decided like, we don't need to hear from point B at all. So that's why they got rid of it. But our show was a debate show, so we would debate hot topics about that. But anyway, and then I also lobbied for public funding for all elections. We do have some flyers about, because we wrote a bill and we gave it to our senators and Congress members. And it was actually the National Women's Caucus was the last one that we did. But anyway, we went in, gave them all this, and none of them wanted to none of them want to move on it because they want the money. They like the money. And they leave out the part that money has bought their votes. It's bought what they're doing. So it's a lot of electoral things we need to do. It's hard to get money out of elections because it's so entrenched, but there's ways to pick away at it. And one of them is to like do voter reform and, instant runoff voting or RCV, that kind of thing. That's good. And also proportional representation, because we're not represented. When you feel like you're not, you're not. There's, like I was saying before to some people, that was like 750,000 people are represented by our representative. That's a lot of people to really be, you're not getting point of view of everyone, and you're certainly not getting the Greens' point of view. And we have something to contribute, and we always will. And we're the electoral arm of the left, and we just got to get this coalition together to where people realize, yes, you have your main issue, or you may have several issues, or maybe agree with everything the Greens are doing, but the idea is like, that's how we make it happen. So with that, let's go let Joanna take over. Johanna?
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, so as I said, we're going to go through a few slides prepared by the Proportional Representation Coalition in California, just to give an overview of what they perceive the problem to be, what the solution that they are proffering is, and how to get there. A lot of this stuff is going to be pretty self-evident to Greens. Like, is the two-party system a problem? I hope everybody in this room agrees. I don't think that's a case I need to make here, and so I'm going to gloss over some of this stuff pretty quickly. But just to give some of the statistics, folks agree with us that there's increasing division between the two major parties. A lot of people are dissatisfied with the state of the two-party system and our politics in general. They want something different. This is something that a prominent proportional representation supporter, Lee Drutman, calls the two-party doom loop, which is not just that the two parties don't represent us, but the two-party system itself is tearing apart American democracy in this cycle of continually divergent politics and in something of a downward spiral. Record low percentage of Americans are satisfied with the way that democracy is working, from over 60% in the early 80s to under 30% today. And a lot of folks don't recognize that it is a structural problem, or that there is a structural underpinning to this problem, that plurality elections, first past the post, single member districts, the structural electoral reform is a problem. Sorry, these slides are kind of small. I'm happy to share them after if folks want to take a closer look. Yeah. But what you're looking at here is just the representation that there are different forms of elections across the world, and the green is what are called winner-take-all elections. The blue is proportional representation. Red is mixed systems, and yellow and gray are other, or they don't have elections. And so you can see here there are a handful of countries that use winner-take-all. But the majority of the world uses proportional representation. So I'll define some of these terms. Winner-take-all system, basically that how we run elections in this country for almost all of our elected office, Congress, state legislatures, is we break up the legislative or representative body into individual seats, so individual districts, and then we let however many people want to vote or run in that election run, and then the person that gets the most votes wins, even if that is under 50% of the votes. That's called first past the post, which is not really a great name for it because there is no post. It's not like you need to get 50% plus one. It's whoever gets the most votes. So plurality voting in single member districts. And what that leads to is the kind of legislative representation that you see on the right here. Lots of red and lots of blue, and no diversity of representation of political differences. Another big problem with plurality voting, single member districts, is what's called the spoiler effect. And I'm sure many Greens are familiar with this. This is, that the lie that Ralph Nader stole the election or stole votes from Al Gore in Florida in 2000. This idea that that a third party, or a party that does not have the same support that the major two parties is taking away votes from other candidates. And so the spoiler effect is a common critique of third parties, including Greens, under plurality elections. And so proportional representation, ranked choice voting, any of these alternative systems do away with the spoiler effect to a large degree. It eliminates this need, or this perceived need for strategic voting, to vote for the lesser of two evils rather than voting for one's preferred candidate. So that's all the problem. And we are offering proportional representation as one of the solutions to that. So this is a pretty simplified representation of how PR works. Essentially, there is not one form of PR. There are a bunch of different ways to do PR. The goal is proportional representation is really the result of a bunch of these alternative ways of voting rather than single member district, first past the post. There are multi-member districts with single transferable vote. There's party list, open list, and some other forms. But the basic idea is that proportional representation results in the legislative body, or the representative body, reflecting the proportion of votes or support that the party has. So here you can see share of votes more closely represents the number of seats that each party gets, which leads to a politically diverse legislative representation. And we'll get into some of the the specifics for how these systems are designed, and ways that they represent people better or worse. This is my home state, Massachusetts. And it's a great example for how one party can dominate. This isn't, one party domination is not necessarily preferable to two party domination, but it's particularly bad in Massachusetts, where we have, 9 congressional, 9 House seats, and the share of votes here doesn't really accurately represent the political diversity in Massachusetts. The political registration in the state is something closer to 35% Democrat, 15% Republican, and about 50% unenrolled or third party. And so, this share of votes is not the share of party registration. So even this does not really accurately represent the political diversity of the state. And yet 9 of 9 House representatives in Congress are Democrats. The state legislature is no better. The Democrats have a supermajority in both houses of the legislature, and they have effectively completely controlled the elections in that state, even though they have only about 35% of party registration. The lesser evil, yeah.
Stein, being from that state, Jill Stein should have one of those. Okay. Well, I just want to quickly say that Jill Stein, being from Massachusetts, should have one of those seats. And in fact, she had told me in 2024 she wanted to run for House, but because we had someone drop out at the last minute, she had to step in. But anyways, I mean, but that's the whole point. Is like we totally lose our voice. So I'm gonna get my voice out of here.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, so then on the right, you can see this is one form of proportional representation as envisioned by this coalition in California that doesn't really understand Massachusetts politics, but this is their best guess of sort of one way it could be broken down. Rather than 9 individual districts, do what's called single transferable vote, multi-member district. So have 3 districts with 3 representatives each, and use a ranked voting system to decide which those 3 from those 3 districts are. And this, this is showing 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and I guess sort of presumably 1 Green and 1 Libertarian, even though it says M, whatever, we'll call it a Libertarian. Yes. That's just one form. I think that the legislative seats could be even more interesting if done differently. So the state could vote statewide for all 9 using a party list thing. And that would show, that would result in, if we go by the party registration, about a 1/3 Democrat, a 1/6 Republican, and half something else, either independent, Green, Libertarian, or some other party that would emerge under that system. I just have a few more slides, if I could. We'll hold questions for the end there. So yeah. What are the benefits of proportional representation? Multi-party democracy is what we see as the primary benefit. This is just a slide showing that the political spectrum is not one-dimensional. I would argue it's not two-dimensional. I think a lot of people have seen this, socially conservative, there are different squares one can make to show the diversity. I also don't agree with these, the new parties that are here, a new liberal party and Patriot Party. But, that's sort of a thought experiment. It's all theoretical until we pass reform like that. Other benefits of proportional representation: it reflects our diversity better, not just politically, but also gender representation, racial minority representation. Studies of countries where they use PR show that this is true. more women get elected, more people of color get elected. It's not just political diversity that goes up in representation. These are a few mainstream publications that have supported this idea. And this is, we're going to transition to like, how do we get there? Like, if this is a cool idea that we agree on, it seems kind of pie in the sky. How do we get there? Jennifer, anything you want to jump in before we get there? Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, it's a doable thing. It's not a huge step, and it's something we can get more agreement and alignment with people that are maybe not in a Green Party, but maybe they're DSA, maybe they're even libertarian. I mean, whatever the party might be, there's things that we can agree on and work together for. And with a coalition, then you don't have like the winner take all. It's like whoever wins the most votes gets everything. That leaves out, let's say they, like they get 51% of the vote. That means 49% of the voters that bothered to vote, that weren't disillusioned and felt like it's not worth voting, but 49% of them don't have any representation. And all the people that felt like it's not worth voting, they don't have any representation. You're not even talking about someone that's representing you. So I put together some packets, and I know you can take a picture of them. You can look them up. But I mean, this way, I know people don't want to have a lot of paper, but I'll have those out there. And we do have these t-shirts too. So just kind of like, this is something to talk up, get moving on it, and get people to learn about it in your state and make it happen in your state. Cause we're pretty sure it's going to happen in California. And, the way California goes as our biggest state, that tends to work out good. But, it's just like gerrymandering is another thing that we'll get rid of. So, because instead of having this kind of like, oh, we're going to make all the seats, they're all going to be red. Well, then we're going to make all the ones blue. I mean, it's like that, it's just that back and forth is just, it's just nowhere. It's taken us like, this is not what we've been wanting. We've never been satisfied with either party, as Greens, of course, but I mean, a lot of people aren't. And so this is the time we can actually get people to realize this. So, all right, go ahead.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, so you mentioned gerrymandering, and we'll get into that at the end here. We get into some pretty wonky territory when we start talking about the specific design of these things, but it is really a powerful reform that would address not just, third-party spoiler accusations, but also gerrymandering, district size, a variety of concerns and complaints about our electoral structure. Okay, but real quick, how do we get there? Is this something that we could do? At the federal, down to the state, down to the local level, Congress is sort of the most complicated. Congress would have to pass a law, would have to repeal this Uniform Congressional Districting Act. That's a complicated question of how we get there, and it's a bottom-up strategy rather than we're going to go to DC and lobby for this with any illusions that they are going to pass this. It's not just that the two parties are in alignment against proportional representation or multi-party democracy. It's also a question of these people voting for something that would eliminate their job, right? Like a lot of them would lose office under this. And so it's a complicated question of, how do we build this up to the national level? But at the state level, we're looking at the initiative and referenda process where, more than half the states have an option to pass laws like this without any involvement of the legislature or the governor at all. California is one of them. And then at the local level, it's like my perspective is this is not as important because so many local elections are nonpartisan. As Greens, we know that is an area where we are competitive, and that's I think we have that pretty well figured out. It's really like building up to the state level if we want to get Greens elected into state legislatures and growing from there. So this is a map of states that have state referendum or initiative. This is amendment, statute, or veto. These, I think one of these is wrong. Statute or veto, referendum, like initiatives is another, like the difference between a referendum and an initiative. Referendum is when the legislature refers an issue to the voters. Initiative is where voters collect signatures and actually just initiate that on their own. The point is about 26 states have some sort of viable process to pass laws going around the legislature. Mostly Western states. California is one, where I live now. Massachusetts is another. And so if you live in one of these states, it's something worth considering doing at the state level. This is the California Coalition, the Proportional Representation Coalition Pro-Rep in California, has assembled a very powerful and diverse coalition of almost all of the alternative, the non-major parties in California. The Green Party of California is very active in this coalition. The Libertarian Party, Peace and Freedom, Solidarity Party, the California National Party, as well as a handful of organizing and nonprofit coalition members as well. It's one of, I think, the few examples of the Green Party and the Libertarians and other parties working together for some shared goals. This is one of the, like, there are a bunch of issues where the Democrats and Republicans are in agreement, but this is one where they are in vehement agreement against this. And so it is important to work across party line for something like this. This is something that would benefit all of the other parties. And so it's an exciting example of that. The coalition meets quarterly. And if anybody here is from California, I would invite you to come talk to me and invite you to get involved. Okay, so I know I've been talking a little bit. We're just a little bit more on sort of the nitty gritty. We'll talk about some forms of proportional representation or some ways to get to proportional representation. Open list, closed list, single transferable vote, multi-member, mixed member proportionality. One way to think about this is there is sort of a spectrum from party-focused methods of PR versus candidate-focused methods, and the design of these different systems has a huge impact on how they work and what kind of results you get from them. So I'll start with single transferable vote, also called STV. This is a form of ranked choice voting. What was, like some folks remember this. We used to call ranked choice voting instant runoff voting. STV is sort of an advanced form of that, where you rank individual candidates, and the candidate that, if no one candidate in an election gets enough votes to get a seat in a multi-member district, then they are the candidate with the least votes is eliminated from the voting, and their votes are redistributed. It's sort of an algorithmic process to get candidates with enough votes into office. It's a little bit complicated. If anybody's curious about how that works, I'm happy to talk through that more. But STV is sort of like, there's an organization called Fair Vote that is a big proponent of ranked choice voting. They call this, there's a form of ranked choice voting they call PRCV, proportional ranked choice voting. And it gets pretty close. If you design it right, if you have the right number of districts and the right number of seats per district, it can really result in a fairly proportional result compared to voter preferences. That's single transferable vote. Open list is a very common form of proportional representation used all over the country. essentially you vote for a candidate in their party, and the vote counts for both the candidate and the party. And so whatever percentage of the votes that the party gets, that's the percentage of the seats that they get. And within those seats, you use the votes for the candidates to allocate those seats. So people have the ability to express preference for not just party, but also the candidates within that party. So it's very, it's open, as the name describes, very democratic form that is used in a lot of places around the world. I'm actually going to do closed list just because it's easy to compare. In closed list, essentially the parties pick their lists beforehand, either through a democratic primary process or not. They can choose to set their lists in other ways. But basically, this gives the voters the option to vote for a party, and whatever percentage of the party of the votes they get, that's the percentage of the seats they get in the legislative body. Something of a hybrid is what's called mixed member proportionality. This is used in places like Germany, where basically you get one vote for a candidate for a district, and you get one vote for the party for a statewide or national seat. And so it gives folks the sort of the local the geographic representation that a lot of people seem to like, the ability to vote for somebody in a smaller district, a local district, and also have that multi-party democracy that results from proportional representation. Before getting into some of these other issues, I'll just say, like, how well these different systems work, closed system, open list. Like, the devil is in the details. And what I mean by details are, I've sort of referred to multi-member districts. There's a question of how big to make those districts, how many members to put into them. Israel uses a form of proportional representation where they vote for all 120 members of the Knesset at the same time, and they have a fairly low threshold to get on the ballot. I think it's about 3.5%. And so what that results in is lots of very fractured partisanship, which makes coalition creation complicated. There is sort of a political science policy wonkery question about tinkering with these levers of how big to make the districts, what threshold to require a party have in terms of party registration in order to get onto the ballot. Like, it's a ballot access question. A lot of the experts say the preference is to design for 3, 4, 5, 6 parties, try to tinker with the system to get it there. I'm not going to express an opinion about that. If y'all want to get into a debate about whether there should be a threshold or whether just anybody should be able to get on the ballot, I think there are pros and cons of the different designs, but just want to identify that there is not a one size fits all solution for these things. And even ProRep in California, we're pushing for a ballot initiative on this, but do not yet have a preferred system or threshold or any of those designs set in stone. There are some preferences amongst staff and the board members and amongst the coalition. But a lot of people just agree any of these systems are better than what we have. And so, we want to get it right, and we want to make sure that it works and results in multi-party democracy. That's sort of the core agreement amongst everybody in ProRep. But, looking at the different systems currently used around the world, there are a lot of different ways to structure these that result in fewer or more parties having representation. Okay, so real quick, we also mentioned district magnitude, gerrymandering. Um, as Jennifer said, we have almost 1 million people per district. You want to take a piece here? Yeah. Great.
Well, one of the things I'm going to say about this is the fact that you can start with something like when I found that the best success I've had politically is ask for more than you want. So you can bring up like public funding for all elections, but then go, but what about, okay, can you at least give us something? And that way they feel like, well, we sure don't want to take money. It was winning all that money, but maybe we'll do that. And if you look at this is, you know how many people are in Congress right now? Everyone knows how many, right? Right. She's running for it. But that's the point. It was frozen at that amount. And we have way more millions of people. We are the third largest population wise country in the world. And basically, 750,000 people are represented by your representative. And they just switch these around, 435. Like just recently, New York lost a population, and guess who gained it? We did in Florida. So then we got two more. They lost two, we got two. But it's like, I don't feel any more represented by any of them. So, I mean, but that's the idea of it. It's just like, you don't have to that tit for tat. But it's pretty outrageous. It was like, I've heard two quotes of when it was done, 1913 and 1923, but it was frozen. Like, we can't make the building any bigger. So you're going to just have to like deal with not being represented. So when we bring this point up to more and more people, as you like groups that coalitions that you may be working with already, and let them know about this, they're going to think, yeah, we should be able to do this. So it gets rid of the spoiler effect. And it also, because it's like, do you want me to not have a voice? And it's like, maybe there's going to be people that go, yeah, we don't want you to have a voice. But usually people be reasonable and say, well, yeah, you probably should get some say. So I got some samples that I'll put out here of different things. But like for one thing, projecting like racial disparities and women disparities are off. I mean, if you look at Congress, there's a lot more men, a lot more white men, and same thing with like Senate. So I have some flyers just kind of showing this, but this is all stuff you can just look it up and you can find what's going on in your state. I have like 4 states that we looked into, but mostly every state has got like fair vote is working nationwide on this. So it's not like the Green Party's come up with this on her own. And, it's like she said, there's a big coalition in California, but it's a movement and it's something we can join into and let people know. Like if I see some, congressional candidates in here, put that when you're out voting or on the street and talking to people, bring that up. So anyway, you can like take pictures of these and, and do your own research on this. But what is going on is like, this says in 1929, that's when they capped it. But you have to think about that. That's like 100 years ago. That's pretty sad. And I mean, it's like if we say that we're a democracy, if we say we're the kind of country that's listening to people, that's pretty sad. Um, One last thing I'll say about this is you're familiar with a lot of the Western Europe countries that have it. And most of them, you can say a thumbs up on their government. Austria, Belgium, Cyprus, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Luxembourg, Malta, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland. They all have it. So their people are being represented way better than we are. So if we think we are the greatest country in the world, we better start acting like it. Okay, we're going to go back to Johanna, let her finish this presentation.
Okay, building on that, I also don't want anybody to think that I think of this as some silver bullet, right? Like some of those countries listed, I'm thinking like, I don't know, maybe not. So like obviously this doesn't fix democracy problems in and of itself. It does not lead to a just, equitable society. It is something that I think of as a non-reformist reform. Like it is not just tinkering with the margins, we're not just doing this for more civil elections and to get a few Greens into Congress and to, you know, like have any illusions that that's going to solve all of our problems. This is a piece of, you know, a much bigger program that we need to develop for how do we get out of this doom loop, as Lee Drutman calls it. And so, for example, you know, like US population per representative, this proportional representation would not solve that in and of itself in a state. So like going back to the, you know, the Massachusetts example I gave you, right? Like we have 9 House representatives. That wouldn't change that. We still only have 9. A lot of people talk about growing the House in concert with proportional representation as one way to do it. That also makes it more palatable for members of Congress because they're less likely to lose their job in voting for it. You know, I don't hold out a lot of hope for Congress fixing itself, which is why I'm putting much more energy in the state and local level. Again, though, like I'm also fairly cynical about state legislators at this point. You know, they have become almost as captured by corporate interests as U.S. Congress. Gerrymandering, though, this like proportional representation is really not a complete solution, but it does away with a lot of the concerns about how to draw districts. So going back to that Massachusetts example again, if we were to carve up the state into 3 3-member districts rather than 9 1-member districts, we still have to draw districts, right? We still have to carve up the state in those 3 ways, but it makes it much harder to game it for partisan advantage. So how gerrymandering works, folks are probably familiar, but the way to sort of game it is a party in power in the state legislature will try to carve up districts where they have a fairly lean advantage in as many districts as possible. So, you know, they want to maximize the number of districts where their party has about 55% of the votes, somewhere right in there, right? And so, like, getting close to that allows them to carve up the state in such a way that they have the most districts as possible. You know, in this current gerrymandering fight going on across the country, you know, the Republicans in particular have had opportunities in certain states to go from, you know, it's like 20 to 28. I can't remember which states these statistics are from, but you know, they're going from 20 Republicans, 8 Democrats to 24 Republicans and 4 Democrats. Like they can't in most states eliminate all of the opposition just because of you know, there are a bunch of Democrats in that state, and so they can't game it all the way. But it makes it much harder if you have 3-member districts because you know, like trying to game how are you going to get 36% to make sure that you get the 1 vote, or 68% to get the 2 seats instead of 2 out of 3 instead of 1 out of 3. It just like it makes the math more complicated for them, and it makes it much harder to game. And so, you know, not that gerrymandering is the only problem, but if that's something that you're concerned about, proportional representation is a pretty it's a powerful solution against it in this day and age when independent districting commissions are on the decline and people are interested in engaging in politics outside of the 2 major parties. So that's the pitch. We have a ton of time. Oh, we're right on schedule. Perfect. I know there was one question here. I do want to open it up for discussion if folks have things they want to say about proportional representation or other alternative systems, but I am going to ask first if anybody has questions about anything that we said, clarifying questions. I had a hint.
Go back to slides as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you could say your name and where you're from and yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Ryan Codine from New Jersey / the Garden State. I do have a couple questions, but I guess it's one question per person, so I'll just ask the one question. How come you guys did not mention the fact that Vermont does have a quasi party system, which isn't a full blown party system, but a quasi party system in the local, county, and state levels? Actually, no, I'm sorry, even national, because Bernie Sanders is an independent. And also the Vermont Progressive Party at the local, county, and state levels. Even there was a Lieutenant Governor, David Zuckerman, who managed to get success with the Vermont Progressive Party as a Vermont progressive as in the lieutenant governor elections in Vermont, because unlike New Jersey, Vermont, it's governor, and then they get to pick the lieutenant governor. I mean, that person running gets to pick the lieutenant governor. No. The people get to vote for him. My question is, how you guys didn't mention that, and also, you guys didn't mention Maine and Nebraska, where they actually don't have winner takes all in U.S. presidential elections. That's what I didn't notice in your guys' slide. I wanted to ask about those.
Sure, yeah, we're painting with a pretty broad brush. There are examples more on the local level of alternative voting systems. You're absolutely right. Vermont is one example. Bernie Sanders is a good example. But Bernie doesn't run against Democrats, right? He caucuses with them, and that's a strategic position on his part. He knows that the two-party system is strong, and that if he had to run against a Democrat, that the little d next to his opponent would make that really hard, and he doesn't want to have to deal with those issues of being accused of being a spoiler, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're absolutely right. There are alternative voting systems used around the country. There's, like, where I live in Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts uses a ranked choice voting system to elect their city council. There are different forms in use today. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have another suggestion. For
Yeah.
when you said there are some local, county, and unfortunately even state elections that are nonpartisan. Notice I used the quotation marks there. I'm sorry, quote unquote nonpartisan. You guys should put during in that word quotation marks around it, because they're as bad as nonpartisan as billionaires are benevolent people.
Oh, they can be. Oh, it's bad. Oh, my friend. And the thing is too, we're introducing the topic. We're opening up the discussion. She's talking more like statewide elections. I was kind of talking national wide, but that's the whole idea. I mean, like DSA is saying, let's abolish the U.S. Senate, which I would be for that. But that's also one of those things where, like, ask for a lot, and they're hoping maybe we can get something else, because then we won't be talking about that anymore. And I have something for people from New York, people from Missouri, if they're here, and Massachusetts. And then, but everything is pretty much available. You can get this from, like, Fair Vote. If you go on and look them up, they will have how you can make it happen in your state. So that's.
We had a question over here. Thank you for holding.
You can come to the mic.
No, but at that time we talked about in the U.S. House and proportional representation. So you kind of talked about it, because I do know it was 1929 when they capped the House, and it actually went into effect in 1930, and it wasn't done because the House was too small and they couldn't expand it. There was other reasons behind that, and basically, whenever it boils down to it, it's about who controls what. And so it's actually capping the House at 435 is actually unconstitutional. So we can challenge them on that. It really should be about 871 right now. And when I said that in the podcast with people from different parties, they looked at me like I had three heads. But I definitely believe, and I want to say that also working to expand the House on the national level will help with proportional representation and pushing that forward. So I don't know which, I mean, I think we work hand in hand on that. But I don't think enough people bring up the fact that the U.S. House should be expanded. 750,000, representatives, um, representing 750,000 is not doable. So in 1929, I think they represented 300,000 each representative. And so, yeah, I think working to get to that, back to that, is something we also should add to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Totally agree. Yeah. A question here. Let's see if we can get the mic to you.
Yeah, basically, like as a disabled person, I know that I don't always feel like, because I'm from Utah, and unfortunately, I don't feel like as a disabled person I'm represented in a lot of issues. And what do I say? Because I know I've talked to a lot of other people before, and I've had people tell me, well, the Green Party's a nice party, but yeah, you're never going to have any real representation. So you may as well just go Democrat or Republican. And unfortunately, when I have actually noticed, whenever different candidates have run for office, whether it's for city, state, or federal, they, how do I put it? Basically, they will say that they do care, but they really don't talk about the issues that really actually matter to people. They only talk about certain specific types of issues, and that's what they go for, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally agree. The responsiveness of representatives to their constituents goes down as the parties have control over their candidates, and I think that consolidation has happened increasingly over the last couple decades. If the candidate steps out of line, they get primaried, right? Like if they actually represent the interests of the people, then the party gets somebody else in there, and so the party's ability to whip their candidates is nearly absolute, and so the ability to run a candidate that actually is responsive to the concerns and cares of the people is something that proportional representation would help unlock.
Well, basically, how do I put it? Like in the Green Party of Utah, there's only like just a few of us that are just like running the party. And we once thought we had someone who wanted to run for office through the Green Party of Utah, but then they backed down. And so, like I know in 2016, for example, there was like the party, we had like 30, 40 people or so that came to monthly meetings and was really active. And then after COVID happened, everything just kind of, it felt like everything fell off the face of the earth, and people that were just the people running the party as well, and so like I know that you're saying that the party can do a lot, but yet when the state that you're in, like the state of Utah or whatever your state is, doesn't want to recognize you, or if you don't receive a certain amount of votes, then you end up having to go out and gather signatures just so that the state, like the state of Utah or whatever your state is, will recognize you and say, "Oh, yeah, you're a member of the Green Party." And
Yeah, and I like to address that because what they're doing is they're wearing us down. And it's like a part of it is because of the two-party system, and it's like the lesser evil. Ooh, what do you feel is like lesser evil? And then it just is everything that you believe in has to be drilled down into this one party, even though I don't really believe in most of what this party represents, but they are on my one issue. And so what it is like these days, more and more people are speaking out. I mean, I would have never thought. I used to watch just like kind of funny, like be in a hotel and I'd watch Fox TV just to see, oh, let's just see what's going on. And like, yikes. But Tucker Carlson, I thought, well, but I actually agree with him on some things, not on a lot of things, but I would have never thought. I would never thought. Same thing with MTG. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I thought, she's a crazy woman. I mean, space lasers, whatever but the point is what she's talking when she gets down the core of like, no on Gaza and let's prosecute the wealthy people that are friends of the president if they've been pedophiles, things like that. Who doesn't agree with it? And so that's where the cracks are coming because everyone's getting tired of being stuck. Like, oh, I have to go with this party because, well, I know they're rotten. I know they don't do anything, but I like them better than the other one. So this is to get us out of that doom loop she was talking about. So it's very important to remember that like they want to wear us down and they also want to divide and conquer. And so this is where we say, well, we don't have to be divided. We can have smaller coalitions. So I think we got two more. We got Michael.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get some questions.
Okay, sure. And then Michael, and then you're okay. So we got 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do online real quick, and then we'll get you 3.
Guys, to repeat the question, because I guess.
Oh, okay.
I have heard on hearing him. I'm not able to turn it up for that.
Which question? Just now?
No, you guys are answering.
Oh, no. So we're good. Okay, so
I'm just telling him to.
and that was it?
Will do.
That was it?
There's a comment. You want to go in the Q&A and see the comment about the U.S. House of Representatives.
Sure. Is this in the Zoom chat? I'm not seeing it here. Oh, okay. Q&A.
Whatever she finds it. Yes, your question.
Well, my question is from GPUS is there one system we favor over another? Because I work with Better Ballot and C, and I know that each state has different challenges. And so I just wonder, is the guidance from the GPUS more uniform, or are we saying depending on your state party and what you're dealing with in each individual state? Because I know in North Carolina, we just had to fight to not get ranked choice voting outlawed. They tried to outlaw it outright. And so one of the strategies we have is to make it so it's not outlawed, so that maybe not use it on the state level, but to allow municipalities to use it if they want to. And that's where we're at in North Carolina. I don't know where different states are, but I just also wondered, like, on the GPS US level, is there guidance on which system is preferred?
We are just opening up the door and all this, but it's up to you guys to run with it, run out that door. But the idea is that every state's going to be different. We have 50 states. We have this thing that's called states' rights, which can be a good thing, also can be a bad thing. And states can abuse their rights and so on, suppress their voters. But the idea is the states do have the power to make something happen in their state, working like with the referendums and things like that. And the policy for a national party, let's get some policies out there on it. But we do know that the California Greens are hardcore into making this happen in California. So are you ready to answer that one or then we'll get to
Yeah, just in case that question wasn't captured for the live stream, the question was about whether the GPUS has a policy position on which of these alternatives, and not to my knowledge. And I would say, like Jennifer said, like we need to experiment with this stuff. There are systems that I think are more likely to produce multi-party democracy, are more likely to get Greens elected. I think the proportional form, like a closed list, open list, mixed member proportionality, much more likely than most forms of ranked choice voting. But if ranked choice voting is used to open up people's imagination about alternatives to a single member district, to alternatives to first past the post, like if we're talking about it in those terms, like RCV is not like the perfect solution. but it is a step on the way to, if we all agree that multi-party democracy is the ultimate goal, then we can take steps to get there. And I would absolutely support a campaign to prevent rollback of ranked choice voting in states. Absolutely. The question, I don't see a question in here. I see just a comment about that, the US representatives capped at 435 voting members, which we have since discussed. So thank you for putting that in there. I don't see anything else online at the moment, so let's go back to our in-persons.
Yeah, so right back there, yeah, you, so I don't remember people's names, I'm really bad.
Jennifer is kindly taking stack for us.
Darren Gilliland Jr., Green Party, Pennsylvania. I have kind of two comments. The first one is maybe a little bit of a plea for all of us, and asking help for myself. Like when you said the spoiler effect, I rolled my eyes because we've all heard it. I suspect there's like political sociology research out there that shows that it's not a real thing. And I know that facts don't change people's minds so much as like relationship building. But if we were, as a party and individuals have on hand, like, no, this study proves that's a fallacious argument, I think that could help us at least a little bit. So if anyone knows any of that stuff, I mean, I'm a biological scientist, I don't know the social sciences. I would love to know. That's one thing.
Real quick,
Yeah.
real quick. You can't spoil something that's already spoiled. You got, I mean, that's an old adage that the Greens have said. And the problem is that something that's already rotten. Yes. I mean, yeah, you can word it. Yeah. Any way you want to word it. But the point is that like, if you feel like you are being 100% represented on every single thing that matters to you the most, then that's fine. But other people with their opinion, what matters to them most, that should matter to you a little bit. You don't want to shove everybody out of the way. I mean, we're climbing a ladder. You don't want to stomp on anyone's toes that's behind you, right? So, okay, next question.
I'm kind of, for the first time ever, putting into words something that's kind of been floating in my head. In discussions of ranked choice voting and proportional representation, I've often heard that this kind of softens the extremes of both ends. And I mean, I think that can play into sort of the enlightened centrist fallacy. For me, I want things to go as far left as possible. I don't want compromise between Nazis and like, maybe we support, abortion, but like, that's it, Are there any thoughts or comments on that? Like, I really don't want compromise between like right and farther right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on both those points, on the spoiler effect and the sort of softening of extremes. I think that's a talking point for Democrats and Republicans who are concerned about what they perceive as like as their parties becoming more extreme or captured by extreme elements. Like what we consider extreme elements of those parties are actually not Democrats or Republicans, right? Like they should be different parties that would have their own support base. And so like I agree, I don't think that is true, that the political diversity of the electorate would change to become more moderate or less extreme. I think actually the opposite. I think it would give more voice to those as new parties, right? Like DSA or some other actual left component would split from the Democratic Party if they had the opportunity to. I mean, I think they should anyways, but like I think that argument is within the existing two major parties, that it would moderate the extreme voices, but really what we're talking about is creating new, more new parties to represent those views.
Yeah. And one last thing about that is like, do not fear more parties. It doesn't have to be two parties only. And also, interesting, how many people, right? Well, I'm reinforcing what everybody already knows, but how many of you have been to Cuba? Okay, did you know that they don't have any other party besides Communist Party, but they have elections. They elect people within that party. And why, for instance, why are they communists? What country could have forced them into solidarity behind their champions that won freedom from being under the thumb of the Estados Unidos. So that's fine. Whatever you want to call it. If it's people that you like and you wanted and you vote for them, person A, B, and C, and the C wins for something, it's good. That's the choice they're making. So they're allowed their choice. Okay, now you're going to be next. But gentleman sitting there, yeah.
We've only got about 10 minutes,
Yeah,
so we'll take 1, 2, yeah.
Lou Novak from Detroit, Michigan. Great presentation. In Michigan, we do have the initiative process, and for 2 cycles now, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been collecting signatures to get ranked choice voting implemented in Michigan. The effort there is Rank My Vote, rankmivote.org. What I found, though, is in discussions, online discussions, and maybe it's an internet thing, that when I introduce the subject of ranked choice voting, somebody comes and says, well, that's nonsense. We need proportional representation. So I'm somewhat surprised to see some ranked choice voting organizations on your list of endorsers in California. Am I just seeing internet trolls making argumentative posts, or is there some conflict there, and if so, how would I address that? Thank you.
The question was about disagreements online between ranked choice voting and proportional representation advocates. And I think it's a false dichotomy, right? Like, as we presented, there are forms of RCV that can be designed in ways that result in pretty good proportionality. And so, the false dichotomy is between some form of ranked choice voting that is designed to maintain the two-party system versus actual proportional representation. But there are, like, proportional RCV gets us pretty close. And so I would say that's a fake debate kind of between, it's not just RCV or PR. It's not like PR is in opposition. Yeah. And so like, a lot of structural electoral reformers see proportional representation as sort of the gold standard, and some forms of less advanced RCV as steps to get there. So that's another way to think about it. Like, it's not like, RCV is an off-road that is a distraction that will never result in proportional representation. The question about North Carolina, whether it's worth supporting or opposing the repeal of it there. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. I think we have time for 1 or 2 more.
All right. So, yes, right. Eat the mic. So building off of actually last comment, but let's see if I can give some background. So I've spent the last 6, I have a true case study of this kind of, want to discuss strategy. It's not really the scope of your talk, because it's more about talking about the plank itself. It's in the national platform, right? There's the yes and kind of mindset. I've diverged from New York. I'm Albany, New York. All New York co-chair Peter Lavinia, he diverged from me a bit, where he uses the phrase, you only get one bite of the apple. Here in Albany, New York, we're only going to do election reform once a lifetime. The last any kind of reform we did was like 72, and that was just nonpartisan school district elections. And so I spent the last half a year, though, being part of the group of progressives that are doing a ranked choice voting referendum campaign in my city. We have the referendum process. It's never been used. Can you guess why? But we've collected the signatures, so we've go over the first hurdle, but the council is going to drag its feet. Every level of government is going to drag its feet. But we've gotten the conversation going. In particular, we tried to have a part in that conversation with this group of progressives over the winter. We talked to them about PR, trying to get as part of the agenda, get it part of the referendum proposal. We failed to do so because as they were going out to neighborhood associations, which are bastions of the most conservative people of the neighborhood sometimes, they found that you can't go too far. Let's just go with like the reform that is somewhat knowable, popular, just RBC. But I stayed on because they went a little bit further by eliminating primaries and just having a unified general election. or vote once election. That's RBC. Because in New York, everywhere, or particularly in cities, the primary is the election. It's one party state, Democrats only. But as we all can attest, I spent the last. Yes, it's a lot like you, except it's all one party. If you want to be represented, just join the Democratic Party. That is what Working Family says. It's what everyone says. But I was never represented in iota of the time of the 8 years I was registered Democrat. But let's see. Wanted some input or just open the discussion to whether or not it's, let's see, move the next step forward with this. We want to push PR, city, state level, but there's all of these competing campaigns. And in fact, in our situation, Unite New York is actually trying to seed other campaigns, even within our own city, even after they helped start ours, but they pulled away because they're for open primaries, and we basically said we just don't want to our proposals get rid of primaries, because to our situation, that's the problem. As far as the half of our coalition or members who steering committee that just want to increase the number of people who can vote, particularly the third of the city that are registered non-aligned, no party, which I canvassed in my ward when I ran for council, because that was basically where I got petition signatures from. All the Democrats are already taken, essentially. And I found that they're all basically a smorgasbord of just open-minded, generally progressive people, but just fed up or just don't want to be bothered. But they're okay with me borrowing them. So otherwise, talk too much. Is there a question? More of a Clement.
All right, I'll respond quickly to say, people have strong opinions about these various forms. But when you actually get people in a room to dialogue about them, there's way more agreement than there is disagreement. In California, the experience has been, the coalition is diverse, not just in terms of parties, but the organizations that are involved. It was recognized that ranked choice voting advocates are part of the PR coalition in California because they want a seat at the table, because they want to be part of that dialogue. People's assemblies, citizen assembly, there are a lot of these just opportunities to dialogue and debate these things in principled ways that aren't, the 2 minute, the one-liner online, so much debate has been reduced to that. And so, opportunities to bring people together in a room for a day or 2 days to discuss these things. The experience in California has been that there is a lot of agreement, and that, when it comes down to it, folks are going to support what gets on the ballot. And so, I'm less concerned about that long term. There are some people that are gung-ho diehards for their particular brand and will walk away from a competing campaign. But the general public, when we get out of our little bubbles, when people learn about this stuff, they're like, yeah, that sounds great. It's really an education problem for the general public. Some of the advocates can get lost in the weeds, but we move on.
That's sort of what happened, where they educating the public on PR seemed to be too much more of a lift than just having RCV. So let's sort of itemize it. But
it doesn't have to be one or the other. And that's the thing, open the dialogue, because there's a lot of people sitting out. What we have is you have the two parties, but you also see most of the people are no party affiliation. So, and that they're a little afraid, oh, the Greens. But the thing is, don't fear the Greens, because we're for you. We are for what you want. That's what we're trying to do, is implement things that help people with healthcare, with environmental issues, combating against AI data centers, clean water, things these are the things that we, as human beings, we want. We want these for our children or our friends. And so these are the things we can work together on. And so instead of making people feel like, oh, well, that's only this certain party's issue, it's everyone's issue. And so ranked choice voting is a way to get there. And it's easier because it's easier than people think. Sometimes they think, oh, it's going to be too complicated, but really it's actually pretty simple. You know, the first choice of everybody, if the first choice wins, you're all done. But that's how it would go. But if you have, like she was talking about, like if you have a 3-member district, then that changes thing. You have your 1, 2, 3 that were ranked choice, and you put them in the seats. So it isn't just one person. You've got the 3 people, and you are taking from this list. So it's really not as complicated as some people might think it is, and that's why we're opening this up so people start thinking about and start utilizing it where they can, where it's going to matter. So, all right.
We are at time, unfortunately. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming for the rich discussion. If you want to stay in touch, both of our emails are up here. I'm going to stick around if anybody wants to chat further. Thank you.
Missouri, I got New York City, got Massachusetts, and Illinois. So, but if you don't see your state mentioned, I started looking them up, and some of them, it's basically Fair Vote is working on it in every state. So we're looking to copy every state. I thought, okay. Yeah. But if you do want, you can someone just take these. If you want them, and these are things just to look at, take a picture of if you want.